Welcome to TSNN's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar will be an education on getting more leads and making them count. Please submit questions for the speakers by typing your questions into the Ask a Question box at the bottom of the media player and hitting Submit. They will be addressed in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the webinar. Alternatively, you can join the conversation and ask questions on Twitter, #TSNN. Now, Arlene Shows, Marketing Manager for TSNN, would like to say a few words and introduce our speakers for today.
Welcome, everyone. TSNN is proud to offer valuable content on a monthly basis to our subscribers during our complimentary webinar series. However, we could not do it alone. Therefore, we'd like to thank our sponsor, OnStream Media, who is credited with delivering the first video webcasting and streaming presentations over the Internet in 1993. Nearly 20 years later, the company has grown to now deliver over 8,000 live events per year for over 75% of the Fortune 100 and nearly 50% of Fortune 1000 companies. The company's latest innovation is Marketplace 365, a leading virtual event and online community platform that is specifically designed for today's trade show organizers, publishers, associations, and enterprise clients. Allow me to introduce our two speakers today. Joyce McKee has a long history as a valued partner of TSNN and is the CEO of Let's Talk Trade Shows. She advises exhibitors, show organizers, and suppliers in a range of consulting assignments. She shares her marketing wisdom via her own blog and two of IAEE's blogs, the Center for Exhibition Industry Research, CEIR, and the International Center for Exhibitor and Event Marketing. Mike Thimmesch is the Director of Lead Generation and Industry Relations for Skyline Exhibits, North America's leading designer and builder of custom modular exhibits and portable displays. Mike has almost 25 years of marketing and trade show experience and has been part of the team that won Best of Show at the Exhibitor Show and TS2. He has presented sessions about trade show marketing at the Exhibitor Show, TS2, and the HCEA Show. Mike writes for the Skyline Trade Show Tips blog and co-hosts monthly Skyline webinars on exhibiting best practices. All of us at TSNN hope you enjoy this educational session. We know you'll walk away with some fresh ideas. So let's get started. Joyce, over to you.
Thank you, Arlene. Well, this is going to be a conversation between Mike and I as we walk through these PowerPoint slides. But the first thing we want to talk about is why should you care about trade show leads? Now, according to CEIR, the number one metric to evaluate trade show success are the leads that are captured. Now, this particular study is what's called the spend study, how exhibits fit into the overall marketing budget. But as I say that this is the number one metric, we need to realize that not all trade shows are equal. And we'll get into that in more detail. So what we're going to cover today, Mike and I are going to be talking about how to pick the right shows, best staff design, the promotional efforts that really work, how to differentiate a top qualified lead from the rest of the pack, and then how to overcome the most common obstacles to lead follow-up. And we've heard quite a bit about how trade show leads are not followed up, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But right now, let's get started with Mike.
Thank you, Joyce, for the introduction. We're going to be talking for a bit first about how to generate leads and get more leads for your shows, and then we'll talk more about what do you do to make sure those leads are valued. So some big ways to start getting more leads is with picking the right shows, with improving your exhibit design, and then it's a lot about the staff you had at the show. So let's start with picking the right shows. It's something that you may take for granted which shows you go to because your company has already gone to a lot of shows and you just kind of have it on autopilot, or you keep going to shows just because you've always done that. But we've done some research and asked exhibitors, what is the factor that helps you increase your budget or increase your results or stretch your budget and with their trade show marketing. And actually picking the right shows was the only criteria out of all we asked that was high on exhibitors' list for both of them. So it's really critical that you find the shows where you can get the best results. So, the first place to start is who is your target audience? Who are the people that you're trying to reach? What do they look like? What's their job title? What size companies are at? What's their responsibilities? And that's a good indication of which shows you want to go to because that audience is walking that show. The other thing you can do to find out where these people are is go talk to your best clients and ask them what shows they go to. And if you ask enough people and they give you similar answers, you got a really good clue that's the show you want to be at. Because not only you get to talk to your existing customers, but you'll find people that look like them at that show. Now, if you also want to look at, do you have specific objectives that shows have different audiences? Maybe you're branching into a new market. You need to find a show that does that for you. Are you looking to increase distribution? You got to go to a different kind of show you've been going to. So your new activities are going to guide that. And then if you're measuring your results from your trade show marketing, you can use that as part of a closed-loop system where you say, hey, we did 10 shows this last year. One of the shows we didn't get a single sale from. These other 3 shows we're getting a fantastic return on investment. Maybe you want to drop out of that one show that isn't performing and expand your presence at the shows that are performing well for you. So those are some ideas on picking shows. Here's some other ones. We talked about which poor-performing shows you should drop. You can just tell you're not getting your enough leads, you're not getting enough sales out of it. The show is decreasing in its importance. They're not doing as good job of promoting the show itself to get attendees there. And looking at those markets you're expanding into. If you've got a new vertical market approach, a new product that you've introduced, it also could be geographic. Maybe you've been a local exhibitor and you're going national, or maybe you're a national exhibitor now you're going international. Take a look at what countries you can go into.
Mike, can I interrupt for 1 second before you go on?
Of course.
Let's go back to the ROI for just 1 second, and I want to make sure that the audience is aware of there is a free ROI toolkit that was developed by Exhibit Surveys. So if you go to Google and put in ROI toolkit, 3 separate words, it'll take you to the site. And all you got to do is sign up, and you have a valuable tool that can help measure the ROI on any one show. Excellent.
Okay, thanks for that, Joyce. Another thing, if you're not rushing, and it's a really good idea, is to go visit that show before you plunk down the money as an exhibitor. You go there as an attendee and walk the show and get a sense of the vibe and see what kind of people are there and get a sense of there's business happening, there's energy, and the right people are walking. And, of course, you take in all those factors, but you need to go out and actually research the shows, and there are literally thousands and thousands of shows across many vertical markets, many time periods, many countries, locations, different sizes. You can go to tsnn.com, who's hosting this webinar. Go to their website, and it's what they originally were started as a whole database of trade shows, and you can find shows that way. Now, why would you even bother to go find these shows? Well, just to repeat, the value of trade shows is when you go to a show, those attendees that are there, they're ready to buy. They've invested their own time and money to go to a show that really indicates how qualified they are. On average, they'll spend $1,000, $2,000 just to attend that show between their travel expenses and other incidentals. It qualifies them. And Exhibit Surveys has their own survey here that recently said that 80% of trade show attendees are qualified buyers. Joyce, you want to talk a little bit about what you found?
I was going to mention on this one, this actual figure has gone up in the last couple of years. It used to be 76%. So the people that are walking up and down the aisle are qualified buyers. And Exhibit Surveys actually aggregates all their research from year to year and provides these types of statistics for us. They're also published in the Exhibitor magazine. So take a look for more of their aggregated information. But back to Mike, their attendees are ready to buy, and are they going to be buying from you?
Yeah, and they may not be ready to buy right away. And I think as what often happens, if a lead isn't ready to buy right away, they can get pushed aside, but they're eventually going to buy from somebody. And we'll talk more about how to figure that out later in the webinar and what to do with those people. Okay, so you figure out what shows to go to. What about the booth you're going to bring to that show? Another great criteria. You're at the show now where there's better audience for you, and so you're more likely to get more leads because you're interacting with the right people. Well, how do you make that interaction happen? How do you make it so that the right people come into your booth because they see the message that's relevant to them? So we're going to talk about exhibit design. So the first point here is, what is your objective? And you want to design around that. The reason why is because your exhibit shape can actually be dictated by what you plan to do in the booth. For example, here you see this exhibit that's about 20 feet wide. They have a table in front of part of their booth, and most people wouldn't want to have a table inside a booth that size, but their goal is probably to develop relationships and maybe close deals and have meetings. So even in a space this size, they're still dedicating a good part of the floor space to have meetings. Conversely, a lot of companies, the number one criteria, as the premise of this webinar is they go to trade shows to generate leads. So what are you doing to generate leads? How are you putting a message out there to get people into your booth? How are you putting interactions into your plan so that you can create some dialogue? Do you have a place to actually write down the information you're recording, a place to store those leads that you get? And then if you're there to get awareness, a lot of that can be happening graphically or through presentations. And you can see this booth has a really great graphic on half of it to get their point across. It's a pretty good startling image to get people's attention. And leading on to that, the second bullet there, get attention by appealing to your buyer. You can see that they are appealing to their buyer. Can you see beyond B2B? Discover B2I. So B2B, as we all know, is business to business. The kind of company that's going to sell to a business-to-business company would be a really good match to go to selling to an institution, but they might not have considered it, or they might not have found a good source of names to do that. And this booth does a great job of communicating that really visually, and then on the right side, backing that up with some facts. So, the point is your exhibit has to tell who you are, what you do, and what benefit you offer. Make it so that people have a reason to stop and come in. The other thing they do really well here is it's too often we'll see a booth where they'll have lots and lots of images and they'll have too many bulleted points, and that's going to cause people to not be able to get what your message is. So we can see this next point here is be visually bold with color and images, but also with brevity, being concise, because people are walking through a show hall. They are seeing hundreds and hundreds, and in some cases thousands of exhibits. They just don't have the time and the mind power to absorb all that information. So you have to distill down your message much like a billboard, where they can get it in a glance, and it has to be relevant to them. So another point that we've found through our research, we've asked our exhibitors, what are you doing to increase your results through exhibit design? These are the points to talk about, is getting those colors and the boldness, and also simplifying their message and making it bigger. But it's also architectural about openness. It's making it inviting so people can come into the space instead of feeling excluded and forced out of it. Having said that idea about bold colors, there is this idea of maintaining consistency with your brand. So looking at what the brand assets that already exist for what's done in on your website, in your print advertising, in your brochures, in your email, direct mail, there are some commonalities so that people remember you more, and you get that value of extending that brand. But also, when you're doing your branding, understand what your target audience looks like. Is it 20-year-old guys? Is it 40-year-old women? Is it grandparents? Is it CEOs? However that is, they have a mindset in terms of their education level, their frame of mind, even affecting their age and their gender. That will cause your references, your visual cues, and your styles to be more effective if they're tailored to what appeals to them. So those are just some design ideas for your exhibit. So we've talked about picking the right shows, and we've talked about exhibit design. Let's talk about booth staffing is the third really important way to make sure you're generating more leads. So
first of all, let me correct you. This is the correct slide. And this is actually Mike's soapbox that he's going to get on and talk to us about the correct booth staff.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. I skipped right over that first one. You can see the boots on the soapbox there. really, this is something that after walking in enough shows, I get really passionate about just how important it is to choose the right staffers, to make sure you have staffers that actually want to be there. Too often we pick the staffer because they maybe know the products already, or they're a salesperson and they should know how to staff a booth, or they're in that city where the show is going to be, or maybe they've got a relationship with one of the clients that's going to be at the show, and so we pick them for the show. And but we're going to fall down with that if that person doesn't want to be there. They don't see it as valuable. What ends up happening is they just end up being a complete drag on your entire booth experience. If they're the only staffer that's not happy, they may actually drag the whole booth staff down instead of being a contributor. They may be a negative effect on them as well. That experience for the attendee walking in when they see that staffer with a sour look on their face, they're not engaging, it's really horrific. And you don't have to do that. You can find staffers who do want to be there, that value that interaction with clients and prospects, that know that they're providing tremendous value to your company. So, first and foremost, pick the people who want to be there. Everything else you can train to, and it's worth training to. So let's go to the right slide now and talk about the correct booth staff. So they want to be there. They've got that friendly attitude, and they're going to keep that attitude through the whole show. They're going to engage the first person well right up through the end of the show when just before the show closes. And because they're able to keep that attitude, they're hardworking. They know that this trade show that you're investing in is costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they've got to do their part to get the maximum value for that. They are able to be a resource for attendees walking in because they know your product and can demonstrate it. They know what that customer's needs are, and they have an awareness of what the main issues are in the industry, and they can talk to those trends. They're flexible, they're adaptable, so there's going to be lots of different people walking in the booth. They can change out what they're going to talk about depending on what that attendee wants to hear. So they're not just spouting the same speech every time. They can be flexible with what they talk about. Now, having said that you've got the raw materials of a really great staffer, you still need to train them. You still need to show them how to work a trade show and how different that is than working as a salesperson outside of a trade show. You have to help them understand what new products are that you're launching, and so they can smoothly demonstrate them. And also, make sure you bring enough staffers so that they can succeed, that they're going to be able to get the maximum value out of that show. It's really easy to say, well, we'll save a little money and bring 2 less staffers, but you may trim a couple grand off your entire show cost, but you're going to trim maybe 25-30% out of your potential lead counts because now you've got fewer staffers, but you're still paying for the exhibit and the exhibit space and the shipping and the drayage, but you've got fewer staffers to take full advantage of that. Also, you want to be able to give the staffers you do have there a break so that they can stay fresh. Because they can only go an hour or two, and then they start to lose their effectiveness, and then you're just, again, muddying the waters with the people they talk to.
I want to emphasize again to train them, whether you do that internally or you may want to get an outside firm to help you train the booth staff. Because the better they're trained, they're your ambassadors.
Now, Joyce showed this slide in one of her blog posts, this idea of the booth recall study that CEIR did. They did this twice at the end of the 90s and also recently at the end of the 2010s, however you would call it. And the idea was that the importance of booth personnel is actually increased in how what creates more memorability for attendees at a trade show. So, those booth personnel have a huge effect on how much results you're going to get. But what can you have them doing? When I saw that blog post, I was astounded by this point, which the number 3 thing was product demonstrations was the number 3 thing, and it's very close and scores the other 2 in terms of memorability. But this is the thing that you can control as an exhibitor. The first thing is the product interest. Well, people walking in the show already have that. They know what products they want to get. The second thing on the list is it's a well-known company. And over time, through exhibiting, you can affect how well-known your brand is, but pretty much people walk in and they say, oh, I know Microsoft, I want to go see that booth. So the product demo is the top thing that you can control. You do a great demo, you're going to have memorability. So that's a really good thing to be, training your salespeople and creating a space in your booth and an activity that will help demonstrate your products well. So, looking at booth staffing, just which staffers do you want to choose? These are a couple of pictures that Joyce snapped at shows, and you can see, yes, you will see at almost every show, people like on the left where it's almost like they're not even trying to engage. It's a day of the office for them, versus the staffer on the right who is completely engaged with attendees, having a great conversation, doing a great job of presenting your company. And that's what you want to be aware of, and that's who you want to bring. Okay, so now we've talked about selecting the right shows, designing an exhibit that gets people in your booth, the right people, gets attention, and about booth staffing to make sure you're getting the most value of that. The last thing we're going to talk about to generate more leads is promotions, promotion efforts at work. And we're going to talk about pre-show and also at-show promotions. So here's the thing. When you go to a trade show as an exhibitor, you hope to see every attendee that walks that show, but the reality is there's roughly 300 or 400 exhibits at every show, on the average show, about 300-400 exhibitors. But the attendees are only going to walk into and talk to maybe on average about 20 exhibitors, which means only about 5% of the booths they're going to go into. So how do you make sure you're one of those 5%? Is you've got to reach them before the show, because for the most part, they figure out who they want to see before the show even starts. So you've got to compete against all those other exhibitors before the show starts by getting on their dance card with a good pre-show promotion. There's nothing more powerful to get them in their booth is to tell them what they will get by coming into your booth, and you have a lot of options on that. We've surveyed exhibitors and asked them what promotions work well for them, and these are some of the things they've said that have gotten people's attention. The new products that's what attendees are coming to see most of all, but you can be booking appointments to people before the show, especially your sales people, if they know which key prospects are going to be going. Giveaways do work. They get people's attention. There's show specials, where you have a discount or a free sample that you're giving away. There's contests that you can be doing to get people in their competitive spirit engaged. You can be doing entertainment in your booth, also using celebrities, which we'll see in a bit. Doing presentations, to groups, offering food and drink. I've seen an exhibitor offer pizza, sending out a pre-show movie saying they're going to offer pizza in their booth. And prizes of some sort, which is similar to the contest. And a new trend you're seeing is donation to causes, where if the attendee walks into your booth and interacts with you, you will donate a certain amount of money to a good cause for them. And some exhibitors are letting attendees even pick their causes. So these are a lot of offers that you can be doing. How can you get it to the right people? Well, there's a lot of media that you can use to reach attendees. There's email, which is the least expensive, so that's generally something that anybody who you think is a viable prospect you can be emailing to. Even people who are not going to be attending the show necessarily. Joyce, you've talked about how to use that as a reason to contact them and to talk about what you're doing and how there's this specialness of the exhibit itself.
Right. One of the things I coach my exhibitor clients on is that use the show function as a way to get to your entire audience, those that are going to be attending and those that are not going to be attending. But then when Mike talks about direct mail, I'm going to skip down to that bullet point. Direct mail can be done in various ways. And I actually did a blog post yesterday about a 3D mailer that was pulling a 73% response rate. So you may want to go to letstalktradeshows.com and read that particular blog post. But getting back to what Mike had said earlier, variation on the postcards, the mailers, and the 3D, that could be different levels of audiences that you are compelling them to be destination bound to see you at your booth.
Thanks, Joyce. So the idea is you scale that up. You know, the 3D mailer Joyce is talking about, it's 100 people or less that's receiving that, but you may send a postcard to 5,000 or 10,000 people that are likely attendees at the show that fit your target audience. Same with telemarketing. It's kind of more towards the 3D mailer. There's some costs associated with that, especially if you hire an outside firm. You only have so much time to reach people, so you may not be telephoning everybody, but maybe your best prospects. You can be running ads about you're exhibiting at the show in the show book itself that's handed out on the show floor, you know, giving them a reason to come visit you in your booth, and also in the industry publications for your key vertical market publications in the month before, the 2 months before the show. And then there's also social media, which is a new media that has emerged, and that's something where you can spend a lot of time on that. It's a free thing to do. On the other hand, it's only going to reach the people who are already in social media. And Joyce and I are going to tag team on this one because there's a lot we could talk about with this.
Yeah, we could spend a whole hour just on using social media. But Twitter can drive attendees to your booth. And you've got to have special, maybe incentives for them to come. The third person that comes and gives a special password gets a prize. So, but it has been shown, demonstrated that Twitter can drive traffic to the booth.
Also, Facebook has tremendous reach. A lot of companies are reluctant to use Facebook because, as a marketer, you feel like, well, Facebook's kind of that private space. It's people's personal social media, but the reach of it has gotten so big. It's like 800 million people that it doesn't have to be your personal account. It can be your company has its own account. For example, General Electric, they have almost 250,000 people that follow General Electric. You put a post out and that many people find it. It's really astounding. So that's something that you can be doing, but that's over time it takes to build that. And Joyce, you want to talk about hitching a ride?
Yeah. What I would suggest to all of you that are exhibitors is that you do hitch a ride with your company blogger before the show, at the show, and post-show, and give them content. And that content could also be videos. It could be pictures. It could be special demonstrations that are occurring on the show floor. Give them information so that as they are putting out blog posts, they're highlighting what is taking place on the show floor. I want to make one comment because it's so important on video that you are putting things up to YouTube because the people who can't be there are wanting to live vicariously on what's happening on that show floor, and videos can help, pull them in to be a prospect for you even though they're not on the floor.
That's cool. And now we talk about finding industry bloggers. It's really quite easy to do. All you need to do is search on that URL there, google.com/blog search. If you go there and search on the name of your main industry shows, you will find the bloggers who are covering that industry show. And it's almost like the new press. They're the people that you can get in front of, you can be contacting, inviting to your booth, telling them what new products you have that they can come look at and review, tell them which company executives are going to be at the booth that can talk about industry trends. Really, it's a great way to reach an astounding audience that's growing because that way you can extend the value of your show after the show to a lot more people. The last thing about social media is the idea of YouTube. As Joyce was saying, you get a lot of people who don't go to the show. There's also people who search before the show and they want to see what's going on. YouTube is astounding. It's not only this very large social media site, it's the number 2 search engine in the world behind Google. So you can see why Google bought them. So many people search on that. And it's not just searching on Justin Bieber and searching for Lady Gaga. People are searching on the keywords around your industry and even around the name of your show. So if you do a YouTube video about what you're going to do at the show or a post-show video about what happened in your booth, maybe interviews with clients, people playing with your products, that overview of the products, make sure you include the name of the show in the title of the video.
Right. And the other thing, show organizers more and more are including exhibitor videos as on their websites or promoting them. CES earlier this year had a contest for the new, smaller, innovative exhibitors. So you can put your message out in a very broad way.
All right. I think we're ready to tackle. Now you've gotten all these leads, Joyce. How are we going to make sure that we get the most value out of them?
Okay, I think we skipped one slide before we go there.
You did. We have that one more.
I got to watch out for you. Got to watch out for you.
At-show promotions.
Right.
Okay, so... All right, so we did a lot of activity before the show. We're offering things via email or via direct mail, telemarketing. Those are the same things you're doing in the booth is what you offered ahead of time. You're having meetings in your booth space. You're using giveaways to get people's attention and as an incentive to get an interaction. You're doing demonstrations to show and prove how your products are better than other people's products. And as we said earlier, they're very, very effective tool. Doing presentations to groups, offering those contests, also having talent in the booth. And you can see this picture here of a famous hockey player and the crowd that's gathered around, rapt attention. They're just totally engaged. And that's great to get those people into your booth. I think it's a really key thing to remember, though, is with any ad show promotion, is that you want to make sure that the promotion doesn't take over. It can take over the entire activity in the show where your booth staffers are no longer getting value out of that. You see all these people facing that celebrity, but you don't see any of them talking to a booth staffer. Now, perhaps that line's extending back beyond the picture on the right side there, and there are booth staffers that are qualifying people while they're waiting to talk to them, get their hockey puck signed. But whatever you do with a promotion, make sure that your booth staffers know that it's only a reason to start a conversation and a conversation that leads to something. You know, give away that giveaway and then don't just walk away and say thank you very much, but give them that giveaway and then ask them, what did you come to the show to do? What are you looking for? You know, ask those qualifying questions that are going to help turn into a qualified lead. The other thing that's really valuable is crowd gatherers. Not everybody wants to reach out and engage people in the aisle. You can have a staffer who's really competent about talking about your product, understands the company, but maybe is a little shy about getting that conversation started. Crowd gatherers are phenomenal. They're like extroverts on steroids. They're so surprising how they can be so upbeat and willing to engage, and people love having them talk to them. And the last point for an ad show promotion is just content, much like you're seeing on social media sites nowadays, or people using content as a way to get people's attention. We've given away white papers in our booths. It's been very successful for us. Joyce, I think you have some examples as well.
Well, I do. And one thing, I think the iPad or the tablets have innovated the whole show floor. And you're able to not only do a demonstration on the fly, but also that iPad has content loaded into it that you can then send automatically to an interested party. And the great thing about digital technology is you can see what did they do with that content. You know, so that they may have requested 3 different things, and they passed one off to 55 people, and they didn't do anything with the other 2. That way your salespeople afterwards know more, they can really hone in on what were they truly interested in. So it's a great tool, and there's many suppliers out there that you can work with to get your content loaded and then electronically into the hands of the prospects.
Okay.
Now, shall I take it over now as we talk about?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'll go for it. Because this is where we're going to talk about how do you differentiate the top qualified lead from the rest of the pack. And the first point that I want to make is this is what you don't want to have happen. Here's this poor old salesperson, oh no, and these are all the badges and all the information that was zapped at the show. And Monday morning they're just being dumped on that particular person. So this is what you don't want to have happen. What you want to have is some type of program that the salesperson only gets the hot leads. Now, I know about this. For 12 years, I actually had a call center, and one of the things that we did in the call center was scrub trade show leads. So this is something I really know what I'm talking about. So how do you qualify the trade show leads? This process starts way before the actual show happens. And you need to have a bridge and a chasm closed between sales and marketing. And the most important thing is to have the salespeople's fingerprints on the entire process. second important thing is to have this reviewed by senior management. Now, I think you and I all know that if you don't have senior management watching over something, it just doesn't happen. So this whole qualifying process starts then. Now, let me ask a question. Do you have within your firm what I call the universal lead definition? So you can tell me exactly what is a lead. So if you're an exhibitor with all of your prospects and leads, what do they look like? What's their buying authority? What's the budget that they need to have to be a hot lead? If you're a show organizer and you're actually looking at, selling to exhibitors, who are your best prospects? What do they look like? If you're a supplier and you're looking to sell to show organizers, what does that have to look like? So the first piece of the puzzle to get anything happening is this universal lead definition. And there needs to be a buy-in among sales and marketing and management what that looks like. Second piece to this is lead scoring. And this is where you determine whether it's on time frame, on budgets, etc. I have given you here in this PowerPoint just some ideas. So an A prospect is somebody who's, that you want to hand off to that sales rep. Not all of those, thousands of leads from the show, but only a handful. And sometimes a sales-ready lead or a lead that's handed off to them is maybe only 5-10% of the total amount of leads that were actually collected at the show. So then you've got the B prospects. You've got those that need to be nurtured by sales. The C prospects are also nurtured by marketing. And then please feel free to throw some leads away. They've gone through the, refining process, and you find out that these just, are not applicable for you. Now, at the same time as I'm talking about gathering and collecting leads, I also want to bring out a point, and that is that you want to keep your database clean. So during the lead nurturing process, you want to have a cleanup process. There are trillions of dollars of bad data in all kinds of databases across the world. And what you want to make sure that once you get the leads in, especially if you're using a CRM system, to keep that information fresh. Let's go on. So let's talk about steps to get a sales-ready lead. And let me flip. One of the things on a sales-ready lead, one of my colleagues who actually does lead follow-up was telling me about one show in particular where an exhibitor had a $400,000 booth. But within 30 days after that, they had a $4 million order. So that was a sales-ready lead that got passed on, that was scrubbed up and handed over to sales. So there needs to be some type of process within your company. Now, the process, and this gets back to it's an overall business process issue. There needs to be some type of system, whether it is Excel spreadsheets or something that is, more robust as a CRM system that you are using on a regular basis, and that everybody within sales and marketing knows what the parameters are. So the first thing is you set up a meeting with sales management. And you're constantly asking them, what would it take for me, marketing, to provide you with sales-ready leads? And you get their response. And that gets back to their definition. Then you create questions that can be captured and recorded in the booth. In fact, one of the things that we're really doing is getting back to the training of the booth staffer is empowering this person to be more than just a taker of information. They can add a lot more robust data about who is this person, what are they doing, what do they like. Maybe you've got questions on the competition that you're asking. So get as many details as you can. With the advent of the iPhone and the Androids and other lead retrieval equipment, iLeads, etc., you are equipping these booth staffers to get lots more detail. Then, as you have created the questions, go back to sales, get their buy-in. Again, as I talked about this before, you want their fingerprints all over the process. And then just do it. Now, it sounds to be very large and very huge, and you may have to tackle the elephant one bite at a time. And I've seen other show managers who will take one show and use that particular show to as a pilot to show sales and marketing what can happen with qualified sales-ready leads.
Before you go on from here, Joyce, I want to say that as I've been getting more into this value of really qualifying leads, we did this at a recent show where we took the booth staffers and we did our role-playing training where we walked through what it's like to staff the booth. And it's so much better to do that role-playing before the show. Do it in the comfort of your own home, so to speak, because it's scary enough for people to go to a show for the first time. But as part of that training, we had the lead card there with us, and a lead card being a pre-printed form with those questions already on it. But we also, as we went through it, we would say at the end of every interaction, we'd say, okay, everybody, what would you write down on that lead? What would you write down on a lead card about that conversation? And have people practice the idea of saying that, 2 or 3 or 4 sentences that would define what that conversation was about. But we also then asked them, was that an A lead, a B lead, or a C lead? And then why? And just having gone through that about 8-10 times made it so that when we got to the show, about 80% of our leads had notes. No, about 80% of leads, they had that A, B, or C on it, and almost every lead had the written notes on it. So it's something you can train to. We just got to include it in your training.
Right. And then also there's other personalized touches that you can be putting on as you're recording information. Maybe you get a hobby or maybe you get some other information. And those pieces of information, as they're passed over to sales, are invaluable. They're golden. So that the lead actually then will think, they did remember me. They did know me. I know I did a recent conversation with Chris Brown from NAB, and I was asking him from suppliers trying to sell to him what turned him on and what turned him off. And one of the things that turned him off was getting very generic emails, "Dear Mr. Chris Brown," and showing that they did not know him. He said, delete, delete, delete. So any way that you can show the prospect afterwards that you had heard him or her, and you know them, that, again, is valuable. So let's go on to how do we overcome some of the most common obstacles in lead follow-up. That's the $64,000 question. As we've talked about several times, you've got to get sales buy-in. And you've got to have senior management accountability. In fact, what I'd like to personally see is that marketing be held accountable for results. I don't know of any organization, in fact, our audience may know of somebody in the organization, where the compensation for the marketing person is tied into performance. Over on the sales side, oh man, it sure is. But on the marketing side, it isn't. And I personally would like to see that. I think we would have a more finely tuned marketing organization that works quite well with sales. So you want to make sure that you're only providing those top sales-ready leads to the field salespeople. And again, this talks about having a process in place. And then I would suggest reward great performance. Let's get back into, if you're going to be starting small, maybe you go off and get a salesperson as your inside ringer and tell them that you're going to be giving them an extra bonus or whatever if they make sure to follow up on those leads. And then once there is that performance of that $400 million or that $4 million sale from the $400,000 booth, make sure that gets broadcast. So, again, reward great performance. So with that, let's turn to, I think we're at the appropriate time, to turn to our questions. Arlene, I see we've got a few questions in the queue. Let's see what we've got. Okay, we've got a question from Sylvia about would this seminar be repeated in the near future? It is recorded and it will be archived. And I can think I've asked the question on sales and marketing, how you get them to work together on follow-up. And part of it's getting back to sales and marketing. It all gets back to corporate culture. And you need to start. In fact, there was one of my former clients who had worked for HP, and he was in a trade show exhibit manager position. And what he would do would go up to the next rung and get their buy-in. And once he got the buy-in, show the performance. And then go up to the next rung and show their buy-in. So you've got to actually work within the silos and within the corporate culture to get sales and marketing to work together on those trade show leads. Mike?
Yeah, I see some questions here. I can answer this question from Emily. She says, how do you recommend a smaller company with a smaller size booth to stand out among the larger booths at the show? It's interesting you ask that. It's very similar to what we talked about, where you first got to maximize what you're doing in that space in terms of design. You may not have as much space, but you can still have bigger images on that booth. You can have brighter colors. You can get, a cleaner look that makes it so it has a bigger visual impression. You can do it by having staffers that are going to be able to engage people in the aisles. But really, once you've maximized those, the thing that really drives it is great promotions. You have some compelling reason and offer and giveaway or activity that is really targeted well to the attendees you want. That you want in your booth, and you make that offer as clear as you can and as engaging as you can so that those people are coming in. They say, wow, I really need this. And that's how you can stand out where, I've been in a show where the little guys are doing great and the big booths are empty. So just because you have a large booth doesn't guarantee success.
Right. And what you need to do in that promotion is have your mentality of the attendee thinking, well, what's in it for me? And if you can answer that question, whether it's a demonstration or a special person they're going to see, that then gives them a compelling reason to become destination bound. Did you see the question on how many booth staffers do I need for a 10 by 10 space, Mike?
I didn't see that. I saw something fairly similar. Do you have a ratio on attendees to staffers? Example, one staffer per every 2,000 people. Mm-hmm. I think what we tend to do is there's this exhibit surveys, which we mentioned earlier, has this formula. It's a fairly long formula that they use to figure out how many booth staffers you should have. It takes into account the size space you have, and the portion of the show that you want to talk to based on your match between your products and the attendees at the show. If the show is 10,000 people and you want all of them, then you need more staffers. But if you only want 5 or 10% of them, then you need fewer staffers. And the last aspect is to take into account is how many hours the show is, so that people are spread out over time versus they're all in there at once. For a 3-hour event, you're trying to reach everybody. So, I can't give you the math on that. It's pretty complicated, but I'll tell you those are the factors to consider.
Well, I'll tell you, if you go back to that ROI toolkit that I talked about, Googling, there are two aspects to the ROI toolkit, and one aspect is that pre-show planning. And I think that formula is in that particular pre-show plan. So you can put in certain variables, and then the ROI toolkit will populate what you need to be doing. Now, there's a question here I'd like to answer on how do you find the bloggers within a particular industry. Bob, also I would suggest that you go to Technorati, TECHNORTI.com, and then you could put in a particular, if you're looking for things in healthcare, or maybe in specific healthcare devices, and it should show you the bloggers that are within that particular industry segment. It also shows what authority level, how many other blogs are linked to that particular blog, and so you can see what authority or what weight this particular blogger has.
Okay, we got a question here from Lou saying, I'm skeptical of giveaways that don't relate to an exhibitor's product. What is your criteria for a giveaway? I was schooled really well by Bob Milam. He has a phenomenal way of determining that. And it's back to what I was saying earlier about what percent of the show audience you're trying to reach. If you're giving away an iPad, some people say the only time you should give away an iPad is if you're Apple. But I think there's more to that. If you're going to a show and it's going to appeal to the entire audience, and maybe 80-85% of that audience is a target audience you want to reach, go ahead and give away that iPad, but make sure that you're using that as a reason to start a conversation, not just, here, thanks for your entry and see you, and they're on their way. You're not there to gather a list. You're there to have face-to-face interactions that lead to a lead, that lead to a sale. Now, when it doesn't work out well is when you're going to a show and you only need 10-15% of that audience. That's when, I wouldn't give away something that's not related so much to your product unless it's a fairly inexpensive, eye-catching thing that you can get people in and quickly qualify them. But generally, at that point, you want to be doing giveaways like show specials, discounts, free samples, consultations, content like Joyce is talking about, a white paper that's tied to what their job is. Because then the only people that come in are the ones that are relevant to you.
And this is where I'm going to tell you to dump the fishbowl. Oh, my goodness, what a waste of time and effort. Please dump the fishbowl. Because what you're getting are unqualified leads. And what you need to do is have some mechanism that you're qualifying them. So that's why you need to have some type of device at the show so that you either scan them or use some type of iPhone application to figure out who is this person and where are they on the time continuum of an A lead, hot, a B lead, etc. And this leads into another question we got from Emily on how long should you wait to follow up with hot versus warm versus cold leads. For the super hot, now those are the ones that are real immediate, I would actually FedEx them something, but not necessarily having it waiting on their desk when they get back. It's, again, back to exhibit surveys, you can wait a few days to get information to a hot lead. So you want timely information to go out within the first 7 days to the hot lead. The warm leads can be within the next week or two. And the cold leads, you're putting them some type of nurturing program that you're touching them on a regular but consistent basis. And that could be every month or so.
Okay, that's a real good answer. I completely agree with that. Nakita asks, can you explain the effects of having a product demonstration video versus just having the product at the booth and showing the function of the product? I think that the video is something that you can, if you're demonstrating something through video that can't be done very well in person because it's something very, very large or it's in an environment that you can't duplicate at the show, then it makes a lot of sense to do that. Also the ability to do a demonstration very large when you have a smaller product. But there's a lot more value to letting people touch that product and feel it for themselves and have their own information where they prove to themselves it does what you said it can do. So if you can get that product in people's hands, go for it. Just don't bring the whole flea market to the show and try and show everything that you offer because you'll create something that's more of a barrier than an enticement to get into your booth. Just bring your most popular products and your newest products, and that's going to do great because people need to touch it. That's why they came to the show in the first place.
Right. And they're also looking not only to touch it, but that interaction with you all. I mean, that power of that interaction. In fact, there's going to be a brand new study that's being released by CEIR, and it's going to be out in the next couple of weeks. And one of the things that is looking like is it's the power of face-to-face. I mean, nothing can beat the power of face-to-face. It can be augmented by things that are digital and electronic, but that touch point of seeing and hearing and then experiencing something is critical.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions here. One from, I think we've got about 5 minutes left, so we've got time for a few more questions. Jack asks, what's the best way on show site to note each card or lead? Is it considered inappropriate to write on someone's business card? Well, it's interesting. I think in Asian cultures it would be. I know in Asian cultures that it's like inappropriate to put that lead in your wallet and put that in your back pocket. But it's also just ineffective because you can't write enough on that business card to really convey what the value was of that conversation. So you want to have something larger to record that, whether it's a pre-printed lead form that has those commonly asked questions. You can always staple their business card or a printout of a scan from their badge onto that card, or you can use the electronic devices that are out there to record the information. Use that as a scanner where you input the number off their lead badge, and then you get the data from the show attached to it, and then you can also have qualifying questions that way. So, a business card is a good start in terms of the contact information, but you need to have room to record more information than that.
Absolutely. Now, we've got several questions that people want to know will they receive the slides, and those slides definitely will be on the TSNN website. Now, are there any other questions, Mike, before we
Well, there's another one about from Mike saying, do you track return on investment as qualified leads collected, or do you take it a step further to converted sales? And I would say, Mike, the answer is you do both. You might be in a company that has a longer sales cycle, and you're trying to get a sense of where the profitability is going to be on a show and make a decision on a show, but it's still too early because you haven't been able to record all the sales yet. You can get a sense of how one show compares to another based on how many qualified leads you got, and maybe also if you have a way to quantify the potential sales value of the deals that you're talking about with them. But ultimately, it gets down to how many sales did you get, and that's really the holy grail. It's if you do a great job of qualifying your leads and getting them into your lead system, you have a much better ability to measure the results. But that's a step further, and that goes back again to accountability, as Joyce has been repeating, and justifiably so. It's getting your marketing, your sales guys at the same table with whoever they report to, saying we have a major investment in our shows. Marketing is doing what they can to produce results. Sales, you're doing what you can to make sales. You need to report what's happening so that marketing can continue to invest in the best places.
And if you take a look at the ROI toolkit, that's something that will whet the appetite of senior management. If you can start showing them that for every dollar that was spent on the show, they got a $10 return, a $12 return on that show, they're going to start asking for their information in the future. With that, let me say there was an Oxford Economics Institute study that was done in 2009, and it was done actually on the overall business travel. But there was a segment within that they actually looked at trade shows, and they have an ROI number, which is statistically valid, of $4 to $5.99 for every dollar spent at a trade show. So I would recommend, at the bare minimum, you can use 5 to 1 as your ratio for a return on investment of your trade show activity. So, are there any other questions? We've got Mike.
I don't think so, Joyce. I think we're ready to wrap up.
Okay, well then I want to again give our thanks to OnStream Media for powering today's webinar. We'd like to welcome you to stay in the marketplace, walk around the exhibit halls, and visit the media library. Now this is where the other webinars are stored and where ours will be stored shortly. Now if you're interested in learning more about the virtual event, webinar, or webcast services of OnStar Media, just go to www.onstreammedia.com. I said OnStar, forgive me, onstreammedia.com, or email us, and we'll forward it on to their representatives. Again, Mike and I had a great time preparing and delivering this, and we want to thank you very much for your time.
And thank you to TSNN for offering us the opportunity to share this information with you. We're always hoping to help exhibitors do better at trade shows. There's a lot of knowledge out there. We just try and capture it and share it so that you can really take full advantage of this powerful marketing medium. So thank you so much, everybody, and we hope you've gotten some great value of this, and you'll come back for our future webinars.